They thought humanity would forgive. Part 1. The Galactic Concord had kept peace among the stars for 40,000 years. 12 ancient species had built it together, creating laws and trade routes and a civilization that stretched across 1,000 worlds. They called themselves the Elder Races, and they believed they understood how the universe worked. Then humanity arrived. The humans had only joined the Concord 200 years ago. They were young, curious, and eager to learn. They studied the technology of the Elder Races and improved it within decades. They learned alien languages faster than anyone thought possible. They made friends everywhere they went. Human merchants traded in every port. Human scientists worked in every research station. Human diplomats smiled and shook hands and signed treaties. The Velith watched all of this with growing fear. The Velith were one of the founding species of the Concord. They had lived among the stars for 60,000 years. Their empire was vast, their technology was advanced, and their pride was absolute. They believed they were the greatest species in the galaxy, but humans worried them. High Arkham Velith sat in his throne room on the Velith homeworld and studied the reports his spies had gathered. Human population was growing fast. Human colonies were spreading. Human ships were getting faster and stronger. In just 2 centuries, humanity had become one of the most powerful members of the Concord. They adapt too quickly, Velith said to his council. Other species take 10,000 years to change. Humans change in a single generation. They are dangerous. They have shown us only friendship, one advisor said carefully. Velith's eyes grew cold. That is what makes them dangerous. They smile while they grow stronger. They offer peace while they build fleets. In another century, they will be more powerful than us. In 2 centuries, they will rule this galaxy. The council was silent. They knew their Archon's mind was already made up. Velith began reaching out to other species who shared his fear. The Kethmari had lost trading contracts to human merchants. The Vorith had seen human scientists solve problems that had puzzled them for centuries. The Druans simply hated anyone different from themselves. Together, these 4 species formed a secret alliance. They called it the Correction. The plan was simple. They would accuse humanity of building forbidden weapons. They would present fake evidence to the Galactic Council. And before humanity could defend itself, they would strike. The Velith developed a bioweapon in their most secret laboratories. It was designed to kill only humans. It would spread through the air, through water, through any contact at all. Once released, it would burn through a human population like fire through dry grass. They chose 3 targets. New Brisbane was humanity's largest colony, home to 800 million people. Meridian Prime was their cultural center, where human artists and writers and musicians had built something beautiful. Harvest's End was their agricultural world, feeding dozens of other colonies. The attack came without warning. Velith, ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel above the 3 worlds. They launched pods containing the bioweapon into the atmosphere and jumped away before anyone could respond. The whole attack took less than 3 minutes. On New Brisbane, a woman named Elena Vasquez was having dinner with her wife, Maria, and their young son, David. They were laughing about something David had said at school that day. Elena was an admiral in the human fleet, but tonight she was just a mother enjoying time with her family. Her communicator buzzed with an emergency alert. She frowned and checked it. The message made no sense at first. A biological attack. Casualties mounting. All personnel report immediately. Elena looked up at her family. Maria was helping David cut his food. They had no idea that in 20 hours, they would both be dead. The bioweapon was perfect. It killed quickly, but not instantly. People had time to know they were dying. They had time to call loved ones and say goodbye. They had time to feel their bodies failing them cell by cell, in 72 hours. 2.3 billion humans were dead. The news spread across human space like a shockwave. On Earth, people gathered in the streets and stared at the sky, unable to believe what they were hearing. On colony worlds, families waited desperately for any word from relatives on the 3 attacked planets. Most of those calls never came. Admiral Elena Vasquez buried her wife and son in a mass grave with 10,000 others. There was no time for individual funerals. There were too many dead. She stood at the edge of that grave for a long time. Other officers came to offer condolences. She did not hear them. She was thinking about the reports that were coming in, the analysis of the bioweapon, the evidence pointing to the Valeth. A young lieutenant approached her carefully. "Admiral, the Council is demanding a response. What should we tell them?" Elena did not look away from the grave. When she spoke, her voice was flat and empty of emotion. "Tell them nothing, ma'am. Nothing. No response. No communication. We go dark." The lieutenant was confused. "But Admiral, they killed billions of our people. We have to do something." Elena finally turned to look at him. Her eyes were dry. She had no more tears left. "We will do something, Lieutenant. But not today. Today we grieve. Tomorrow we plan. And when we are ready, when we are truly ready, we will teach the galaxy a lesson it will never forget." On the Valeth homeworld, Archon Veleth received reports of his success with satisfaction. The humans were in chaos. Their colonies were in mourning. Their government was silent. "They are broken," he announced to his council. "Just as I predicted. These humans are soft. They talk about peace and friendship, but they have no strength. They will beg us for mercy within the month." His advisors nodded and praised his wisdom. None of them understood what they had done. None of them realized that they had not broken humanity. They had united it. Every human alive now shared one thing: loss. Every human alive now had one purpose: response. The Valeth thought humanity would cry and plead and eventually accept their place as a defeated species. They thought humans were like the other young races they had crushed over the millennia. They were wrong. In the silence that followed the attack, humanity was not falling apart. Humanity was coming together. Old enemies shook hands. Old arguments were forgotten. Scientists shared secrets they had guarded for decades. Engineers worked without sleep. Soldiers trained with new determination. They were not preparing to surrender. They were preparing to deliver a message the galaxy would remember. For 10,000 years, and they would write that message in fire. They thought humanity would forgive. Part 280 months passed after the attack. In that time, human space became a mystery that no one could solve. Ambassador Kethra of the Silurian species stood before the Galactic Council and demanded answers. The Silurians had been neutral in all conflicts for 30,000 years. They were diplomats, mediators, seekers of peace. And Kethra had been a friend to humanity. "We have sent 47 ships into human space," she told the council. "None have returned. We have launched hundreds of probes. They go silent the moment they cross the border. What have you done to them?" Archon Veleth smiled from his seat among the elder species. "We have done nothing but defend ourselves against a dangerous enemy. The humans brought this upon themselves. By existing?" Kethra asked coldly. "By growing too fast for your comfort? By threatening the stability of the Concord?" Kethra wanted to argue more, but she had no evidence. No one knew what was happening inside human space. The silence was complete. She remembered her last conversation with the human ambassador, a kind man named Thomas Webb. They had been discussing philosophy over drinks, as they often did. "Humans are strange," she had told him. "You adapt to everything. You never seem to break, no matter what happens to you. Thomas had smiled sadly. We break all the time, Ambassador. We just do it quietly. And then we put ourselves back together in new shapes. What happens when someone truly hurts you? When the wound goes too deep? Thomas had thought about this for a long moment. We don't get angry quickly, he said finally. But we remember. We always remember. And we are very, very patient. Now Thomas Webb was dead, killed on Meridian Prime along with the entire diplomatic corps. And humanity was silent. Kethra feared that silence more than she would have feared screaming. Inside the human quarantine zone, the truth was simpler and more terrifying than anyone outside could have. Yes. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the newly constructed battleship Remembrance and watched the fleet assemble around her. Ships of every size filled the space between Earth and Mars. More ships than humanity had ever built before. More ships than the galaxy had ever seen in one place. Final count, Admiral, her aide reported. 12,000 combat vessels. 40,000 support ships. 2 million ground troops ready for deployment. Elena nodded. It was not enough. It would never be enough to bring back Maria and David. But it was enough to deliver the message. And the special projects? The nanomachine seeds have been deployed on the Volith homeworld. They are dormant and undetectable, awaiting activation signal. The biology team has completed their analysis of Volith physiology. We now know their weaknesses better than they do themselves. Elena allowed herself a small, cold smile. The Volith had spent years studying human biology to create their bioweapon. In 18 months, human scientists had learned everything about Volith biology in return. Turnabout was fair play, but Elena had no intention of using that knowledge the way the Volith had used theirs. "Any word from the Council?" she asked. They continued to demand communication. Archon Velith has offered terms of surrender. He promises that if we submit, some humans will be allowed to survive as a protected species. The bridge crew went quiet. Protected species. It meant living in reservations stripped of technology, watched constantly. It meant the end of humanity as a free people. "I see," Elena said. "And what do our people say?" The response has been unanimous, Admiral. Every colony, every station, every ship. They all say the same thing, which is... Her aide smiled grimly. They say we remember New Brisbane. We remember Meridian Prime. We remember Harvest's End. And they say the Volith can take their surrender terms and burn with them. Elena felt something warm in her chest. Pride, perhaps. Or love for her people. Humanity had always been divided. Nations had fought nations. Ideologies had clashed. But the Volith had done something remarkable. They had given humanity a common enemy. They had united a species that had never truly been united before. "Send word to all commands," Elena said. "We move in 6 months. Begin final preparations." The fleet hummed with activity. In shipyards hidden throughout human space, workers labored around the clock. They built weapons that had never existed before. They designed tactics that no enemy had ever faced. They trained until they could fight in their sleep, and they remembered. Every ship had a memorial wall. Every crew had lost someone. Every human who worked on this fleet carried the weight of 2.3 billion dead. They did not cry anymore. They had cried enough in the first weeks. Now they simply worked. A young engineer named Sasha Koralev was installing targeting systems on a new destroyer when her supervisor found her. "Koralev, you've been working for 30 hours straight. Take a break." Sasha didn't look up from her work. "My sister was on New Brisbane. She had 3 children. The youngest was 2 years old." Her supervisor was quiet for a moment. "I lost my parents on Harvest's End. Then you understand why I can't stop." He nodded slowly. "Just don't burn out before we reach the Velith. We need you for what comes next." Sasha finally looked at him. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but burning with determination. "I'll rest when the message is delivered. Not before." This scene repeated itself across human space. Scientists pushed themselves to exhaustion and then pushed further. Soldiers trained until their bodies screamed and then trained more. Engineers built and rebuilt and improved until their creations were perfect. The Velith expected humanity to collapse from grief. Instead, grief had become fuel. Pain had become purpose. Loss had become unity. Admiral Vasquez reviewed the final battle plans in her quarters late one night. On her desk sat a photograph of Maria and David, smiling on a beach during their last vacation together. She looked at it for a long moment. "I won't use their weapons," she said quietly, as if speaking to the photograph. "I won't become what they are, but I will make sure they never forget what they did. I will make sure the galaxy knows the cost of betraying humanity." She touched the photograph gently, then turned back to her work. In 6 months, the silence would end. And when humanity finally spoke again, every species in the galaxy would listen, whether they wanted to or not. They thought humanity would forgive. Part 3. The small ship appeared at the edge of Velith space without warning. It was barely larger than a shuttle, carrying no visible weapons, broadcasting a peaceful signal on all frequencies. The Velith border fleet surrounded it within minutes. 50 warships pointed their guns at this tiny vessel, ready to destroy it at the first sign of hostility. But the ship just floated there, waiting. A message came through the communication systems. A woman's voice, calm and clear. "This is Ambassador Sarah Chun of the United Human Colonies. I request an audience with Archon Velith to discuss terms." The Velith commanders did not know how to respond. They had expected human fleets, human attacks, human rage. Not a single diplomat in an unarmed ship. After much debate, they decided to bring her to the homeworld. Perhaps she was coming to surrender. Perhaps the humans had finally broken. As the Archon had predicted, Ambassador Chun was escorted through the grand halls of the Velith Palace by armed guards. She walked calmly, showing no fear, studying everything around her with intelligent eyes. She was a small woman with gray hair and a face that showed nothing of what she was thinking. 2 years ago, Sarah Chun had watched her entire diplomatic team die on Meridian Prime. She had survived only because she was running late to a meeting. The bioweapon had killed everyone in the building before she arrived. She had stood outside and watched through the windows as her friends and colleagues collapsed. One by one. Now she walked into the throne room of the species that had murdered them. Archon Velith sat on a raised platform, surrounded by his advisors and guards. He was tall for a Velith, with the dark blue skin and silver eyes that marked their species. He looked down at the human ambassador with obvious contempt. "So," he said, "the humans send a single old woman to beg for mercy. I expected more." Sarah Chun stopped in the center of the room and looked up at him without flinching. "I am not here to beg," she said. Velith laughed. "Then why are you here? Your species is dying. Your colonies are in ruins. You have nothing left to bargain with." "You are mistaken, Archon." "Am I?" Velith leaned forward with a cruel smile. "Let me explain your situation. Your population has been reduced by billions. Your economy is destroyed. Your military is scattered and weak. If you surrender now, I will be generous. Some of your people will be allowed to survive. They will live on reservations under our protection. They will serve us, and in return, they will not be exterminated completely." Sarah Chun listened to all of this without any change in her expression. When Velith finished, she reached into her coat and pulled out a small device. The guards moved toward her, but she held up her hand. "This is not a weapon," she said. "It is a projector. May I?" Velith waved his hand carelessly. "Show me whatever pathetic offer you have brought." Sarah activated the device. A holographic display filled the air above her, showing a map of Velith space. Every colony, every military base, every population center was marked clearly. "We know where everything is," Sarah said simply. "Every shipyard, every weapons factory, every city." Velith was unimpressed. "So you have maps. This means nothing." The display changed. Now it showed ship after ship after ship, filling the screen until there were too many to count. Human vessels of every size, armed with weapons that Velith analysts could not identify. 12,000 warships, Sarah said. 40,000 support vessels. Built in 18 months of silence while you celebrated your victory. For the first time, Velith's smile faltered. "That is impossible," he said. "No species could build such a fleet so quickly. You do not understand humanity, Archon. You never did. When we are divided, we argue and fight and waste our strength on each other. But when we are united, when we have a single purpose, there is nothing in this galaxy that can stop us." She changed the display again. Now it showed the Velith homeworld, with tiny dots scattered across every continent. 18 months ago, we seeded your atmosphere with nanomachines. They are dormant now, waiting for an activation signal. They are invisible to your sensors. They have spread to every corner of your world, into your water, your food, your air. One command from me, and every Velith on this planet dies exactly as humans died on our colonies. The throne room went completely silent. Velith had gone pale. "You're bluffing," he said, but his voice was uncertain. "I am not. Your scientists can confirm what I have told you, if you give them time. But we both know you believe me." Sarah Chun took a step forward. Her eyes locked with Velith's. "You made a mistake, Archon. You studied our biology and found a way to kill us. But you did not study our history. You did not learn what happens when humanity is pushed to the edge. What do you want?" Velith demanded. "I want you to understand something." Sarah's voice was still calm, but there was steel beneath it. "We could kill every Velith on this planet right now. We could use your own tactics against you. We could commit the same genocide you committed against us." She paused, "But we will not." Velith blinked in confusion. "What? We will not use these weapons. We will not become what you are. We came here to show you what we could do, so that you understand what comes next is not cruelty. It is not revenge. It is consequence." Sarah deactivated the projector and put it back in her coat. "Your military will be destroyed. Your ability to threaten anyone will be removed. But your civilians will not be harmed. Your children will not die screaming as ours did. Because we are not like you." She turned to leave, then stopped and looked back over her shoulder. "The galaxy is watching, Archon. They have seen what you did to us. Now they will see what we do to you. And they will learn the difference between the Velith and humanity." She walked out of the throne room. No one tried to stop her dot as her ship left Velith space. Arkham Velith sat frozen on his throne. His advisors whispered frantically around him, but he heard none of it. He had expected humans to beg. He had expected them to surrender. He had expected them to be weak. As all young species were weak, he had not expected them to hold his world hostage and then choose not to use it. He had not expected mercy to be more terrifying than revenge, and he had not expected to feel, for the first time in his long life, genuine fear. They thought humanity would forgive. Part 4. Human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at exactly the same moment in 40 different locations throughout Velith space. There was no warning. 1 second the space was empty. And the next second, it was filled with thousands of human warships. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Remembrance and watched the Velith defense station ahead of her ship. It was one of the largest military installations in the galaxy, home to 300 warships and 50,000 soldiers. "All ships report ready, Admiral," her aide announced. "Awaiting your command." Elena thought of Maria and David. She thought of the mass grave where they lay with 10,000 others. She thought of the 18 months she had spent preparing for this moment. "Begin," she said. The battle for Kethvor Station lasted 4 hours. The Violeth fought bravely, but they were facing something they had never seen before. Human ships moved together like a single organism. When one ship fired, 20 others fired at the same target. When the Velith tried to flank them, human vessels were already waiting. The Velith had spent millennia developing their military tactics. Humans had spent 18 months studying those tactics and finding every weakness. By the end of the 4th hour, the station was surrounded. Its weapons were destroyed. Its shields were down. 200 of its warships drifted dead in space. Elena opened a communication channel to the station commander. "This is Admiral Elena Vasquez of the United Human Colonies. Your station is disabled. Your fleet is destroyed. You have 1 hour to evacuate all personnel before we dismantle this facility completely." The Velith commander stared at her through the viewscreen. "You would let us go? We are not here for blood. We are here to remove your ability to threaten anyone ever again. Get your people out, Commander. We have no quarrel with common soldiers." The evacuation began immediately. Velith escape pods and shuttles fled the station while human ships watched and did not fire. When the last life sign had left the station, human weapons reduced it to scrap metal in 30 seconds. This scene repeated itself across Velith space. At the shipyard of Vethkanar, human marines boarded the facilities and escorted workers to safety before demolishing every construction bay. At the weapons factory on Moon Drolos, human engineers disabled every production line while medics treated injured Velith workers. At the military academy on Keth Prime, human soldiers allowed cadets to gather their personal belongings before leveling the buildings. No civilians were harmed. No cities were bombed. No populations were attacked, only military targets. Only weapons and ships and the ability to make war. The Velith could not understand it. They had committed genocide against humanity. They had expected genocide in return. Instead, they watched humans dismantle their military with surgical precision while leaving their people alive. It was, somehow, more humiliating than destruction would have been. The 3 species who had helped the Velith tried to intervene. The Kethmari sent their fastest attack fleet to ambush a human convoy. Human ships disabled every Kethmari vessel in 11 minutes without killing a single crew member. The Varath attempted a surprise attack on the human supply lines. Human defenders captured their flagship and broadcast footage of Varth. Admiral Kesnath being politely escorted to a holding cell, while a human officer offered him water and asked if he needed medical attention. The Druin did not even try. They sent a message of surrender before human ships entered their space. At the Galactic Council, the other species watched these events unfold with growing amazement. Ambassador Kethra of the Silurians requested permission to speak. "For 40,000 years," she said, "we have believed that the elder races understood how the galaxy works. We believed that power meant the ability to destroy. We believed that victory meant the death of enemies." She gestured to the display showing human ships helping evacuate wounded Velith soldiers from a destroyed base. "The humans have shown us something different. They have won this war completely. The Velith military is gone. Their allies have surrendered. Humanity could demand anything they wanted. They could take territory. They could enslave populations. They could commit the same atrocities that were committed against them." She paused. Instead, they have chosen to show the galaxy what strength really looks like. Not the strength to destroy. The strength to destroy and choose not to. Ambassador Sarah Chun entered the council chamber. She was still wearing the same simple clothes she had worn when she faced Arkham Velith. She looked tired but calm. For 200 years, she told the council, humanity was your student. We learned your laws. We respected your customs. We thought we had found a family among the stars. We were wrong. She looked around the chamber at the representatives of 100 species. We could hate you for what happened. We could fear you and build weapons to protect ourselves forever. We could become what the Velith became, striking first against anyone who might threaten us. Sarah shook her head slowly. But that is not who we are. We came from a small planet in a quiet corner of the galaxy. We learned to work together because we had to. We learned that cooperation is stronger than competition. We learned that the hand that helps is more powerful than the hand that strikes. What do you want? The council president asked. We want what we always wanted. Peace, trade, friendship. We want to build things and explore places and meet new people. We want to live. And the Velith? The Velith will face justice. Not our justice, yours. We will present evidence of their crimes to this council. Every communication, every plan, every order that led to the death of 2.3 billion humans. And then you will decide what happens to them. You trust us to judge fairly? Sarah smiled sadly. We trust you to learn from what you have seen. We trust you to understand that humanity will never again be a victim. And we trust you to remember that we had the power to destroy the Velith completely and chose mercy instead. She turned to leave. Wait, Kethra called out. What happens now? What does humanity want from the future? Sarah paused at the door. We want to go home, she said quietly. We want to rebuild our colonies and mourn our dead and raise our children in peace. We want to remember those we lost and make sure their deaths meant something. She looked back at the council one final time. And we want the galaxy to know that humanity will never forget. Not the betrayal, not the loss, and not the choice we made when we had the power to become monsters and chose to remain human. She left the chamber in silence. Behind her, 100 species sat in the quiet and thought about what they had witnessed. The humans had won a war without committing a single atrocity. They had crushed their enemies while saving enemy lives. They had proven that strength and cruelty were not the same thing. It was the most terrifying victory the galaxy had ever seen. They thought humanity would forgive. Part 5. The war ended 14 days after it began. It was the shortest major conflict in galactic history, and also the strangest. Humanity did not occupy Velith space. They did not demand territory or resources or tribute. They did not install human governors on Velith worlds or force the Velith to bow before human masters. Instead, they demanded something far more devastating. They demanded the truth. Every record of the conspiracy was released to the galactic network. Every secret communication between Archon Velith and his allies. Every scientific report discussing the best way to kill humans. Every cold calculation about acceptable civilian casualties. Every lie told to the Galactic Council. The galaxy watched in horror as the full scope of the crime became clear. This was not a defensive action against a dangerous enemy. This was planned genocide, motivated by fear and jealousy and pride. The Velith had murdered 2.3 billion people because they were afraid of what humanity might become. On the Velith homeworld, the population learned what their leaders had done in their name. Many refused to believe it at first. They had been told that humanity was the aggressor, that the bioweapon was necessary for survival. But the evidence was overwhelming. Communication logs, laboratory records, planning documents, all of it authenticated by neutral parties. Archon was delivered to a human court on Earth, but he was not brought there for execution. He was not tortured or imprisoned in terrible conditions. He was given a clean room, adequate food, and access to legal counsel. Then he was brought before a simple wooden podium and given a list. The list contained 2.3 billion names. "You will read them," Admiral Elena Vasquez told him. "All of them. Every name. Every person your weapon killed. You will speak their names aloud so the galaxy can hear. And you will keep reading until you are finished." Velith stared at the list. It was enormous. The names seemed to go on forever. "This will take years," he said. "Yes," Elena replied. "It will take approximately 4 years if you read continuously. We have arranged for breaks for sleep and meals. But you will read every name. And then you will go free. You will return to your people and live with what you have done. That is your punishment, Archon. Not death. Memory." Velith began reading. The galaxy watched as the proud Archon of the Velith hegemony stood at a podium day after day, speaking the names of his victims. Maria Vasquez, David Vasquez, Thomas Webb, Sasha Korolev's sister and her 3 children, including the 2-year-old who never got to see her 3rd birthday. Name after name after name. Hour after hour, day after day, month after month. By the end of the 2nd year, Velith's voice was hoarse and his eyes were hollow. By the end of the 3rd year, he could barely stand. By the end of the 4th year, when he finally spoke the last name, he was a broken shell of what he had been. He was released as promised. He returned to the Velith homeworld, but no one would speak to him. His own people turned away when he walked past. He lived alone in a small room, haunted by 2.3 billion names that he could never forget. He had wanted to destroy humanity. Instead, humanity had destroyed something inside him and let him live to feel the emptiness. The Galactic Council offered humanity a seat of leadership in the New Order. They had proven themselves the most powerful species in the galaxy. They had earned the right to rule. Ambassador Sarah Chen declined on behalf of humanity. "We are not your rulers," she said. "We are not your masters. We are your reminder. A reminder of what trust means, of what betrayal costs, of what mercy looks like when it is freely given instead of demanded." Humanity withdrew to its borders. They rebuilt their colonies. They planted gardens where mass graves had been. They raised children who would know peace instead of war. But they did not forget. On the 1st anniversary of the attack, every human colony lit a beacon in its upper atmosphere. These were not ordinary lights. They were engineered to burn with specific colors, visible from space, lasting for exactly 24 hours. From orbit, each colony looked like it was surrounded by a ring of fire, a crown of flames that spelled out a message in light. We remember. The message was broadcast on every frequency, in every language known to the galaxy. We remember New Brisbane. We remember Meridian Prime. We remember Harvest's End. We remember every name, every face, every life that was stolen from us. We forgive nothing. We forget nothing. And we are still here. Ambassador Kethra of the Solarians watched the broadcast from her ship in orbit above her homeworld. Tears ran down her face as she saw the rings of fire burning around distant human worlds. "What are you thinking?" her aide asked. "I am thinking that we were fools," Kethra said quietly. "We looked at humans and saw a young species, weak and vulnerable. We did not see what they really are. What are they?" Kethra thought of Thomas Webb, her friend who had died on Meridian Prime. She thought of his words about patience and memory. "They are survivors," she said. "They have survived ice ages and plagues and wars and disasters that would have destroyed any other species. They have survived everything the universe has thrown at them. And when we added our cruelty to that list, they survived us too. Are you afraid of them?" Cathra shook her head slowly. No, I respect them. And I am grateful that when they had every reason to become monsters, they chose to remain something better. 300 years later, a young Valith historian named Siren traveled to Earth to interview the last survivors of the war. Most of them were gone now, but one remained. Maya Vesquez, granddaughter of Admiral Elena Vesquez, had lived 340 years thanks to human longevity treatments. She met Siren in a garden on the grounds of the new Brisbane Memorial. Flowers grew everywhere, bright and beautiful in the afternoon sun. May I ask you a question? Siren said carefully. Of course. Do you think humanity made the right choice? Showing mercy instead of revenge? Maya thought about this for a long moment. She looked at the flowers, at the memorial stones, at the peaceful sky above. The mercy was not for your people, she said finally. The mercy was for us. We needed to prove to ourselves that we were better than what had been done to us. We needed to look in the mirror and still recognize ourselves. Then what was the message? The fire, the beacons, the remembrance? Maya smiled, and there was something ancient and fierce in her eyes. The message was simple. You cannot break something by trying to destroy it. You can only make it stronger. Humanity survived because we chose to survive. We chose to remember without being consumed by hate. We chose to be strong without becoming cruel. She stood slowly and walked toward the memorial wall, where millions of names were carved in stone. Every year, on the anniversary, we still light the beacons. We still speak the names. We still remember. She touched the wall gently, her fingers tracing letters worn smooth by time. The fire was never about revenge. It was about making sure the galaxy never forgets what was done and what was not done. What we suffered and what we chose not to inflict on others. Siren watched her, feeling the weight of history in this quiet garden. The galaxy remembers, he said softly. We all remember. Maya nodded. Good. That was the point. Not to terrorize. Not to threaten. Just to remind everyone that actions have consequences, that trust is sacred, and that humanity will always be here. She turned back to face the young historian. We wrote our message in fire so it would never fade. And as long as the stars burn, we will keep writing it. Over and over again, year after year, generation after generation. She looked up at the sky, where distant suns shone like tiny flames. We are still here. We will always be here. And we will never, ever forget. The end.